may look like a piece of canvas, but this set of Mask 3A medical anti-shock trousers could be the thing to save your life when you're next involved in an accident, either at work, on the road, or at home. Initially used during the Vietnam War and modified for use by paramedics, the $600 pair of pants were introduced to the ambulance service just 12 months ago. They're wrapped around patients with fractured or lacerated legs, or who have lower abdominal hemorrhaging, and when inflated, they can stick the blood circulation and force it to the upper body, namely the heart and brain. In this way, they're effective in reducing both shock and bleeding, and such is their importance that the Belmont Lions Club had no hesitation in funding the purchase of 2 sets for the Belmont Ambulance Service that they're handing over in demonstration today. The acting regional ambulance superintendent.
Well, the point is that we want to get them in quickly.
The generosity of the Lions Club is to be highly commended.
Well, the point about it is that we want to get them into the vehicles as quickly as we can, and the public support is vital to us to achieve this in a short space of time.
Well, how will the public see them being used?
Well, principally they'll be used at motor vehicle accidents, other instances of trauma where shock, which is caused because of changes to the circulation occurs, and that's where these suits will be used.
Whereas previously the festival involved a 3-day concert at the University Great Hall, this year the Hunter Secondary region has been divided into 3 areas, the City, Lakes and Northern, each of them holding their own festival. At the Newcastle High School yesterday, the Desmond High School Recorder Group was airing its talents, and hopefully if the adjudicators concur, they'll be one of the 15 acts chosen to perform at a gala public concert at the Great Hall on June 12. Already the Northern area has held its selection concert, with the Lakes concert set down for tomorrow at the Buralgate High School. Although the concerts aren't designed to be competitive, a panel of adjudicators is on hand to select the act for the Great Hall performance, and according to organiser Philip Sketchley, inclusion in that concert is highly prized. From 25 schools and 1,500 students, who have presented around 150 items at the completion of the 3-concert program, and so far the standard has been particularly high, which is both a reflection of the growing stature of elective music in secondary schools and the influence of the annual Hunter Region Music Festival over the past 25 years.
The proposal to make this house in Conrad Close, Charlestown, a halfway house for juvenile offenders has angered and worried local residents. Some believe such schemes are a dangerous idea, but 29-year-old Glenn Gatfield will tell you that a similar boys' home in Queensland changed his life for the better.
Well, they've had nothing else but people fighting against them. They've had nothing else to do but fight
he now has
as well.
A good job, a
so
strong marriage,
if they're going to go into an area where there's still this...
He says he is proof that halfway houses are a good idea, but that they must be in suburbs where they are welcome.
Well, these kids have come from that type of situation where they've had nothing else but people fighting against them. They've had nothing else to do but fight as well. So if they're going to go into an area where there's still this continual sort of fighting and backstabbing going on, then the halfway house isn't going to be beneficial to them in that situation, because they've got to have a proper neighbourhood where the kids can sort of interact with other children without having this bitterness being enforced on them by the parents.
But if everywhere those kids go, they get that rejection from the neighbourhood, what's their future?
There's no future for them, really. The people in the neighbourhood say these kids aren't good enough for them. Well, I'm afraid to say the shoe is on the other foot. This neighbourhood is not good enough for the kids.
Rathmines Bowling Club has probably never seen a bigger crowd, and it's an indication of the interest the coming of the Neighbourhood Watch scheme has inspired in the area. Senior members of the Police Community Relations Bureau in Sydney travelled to Rathmines to explain how the scheme will work. The suburb will be divided into groups of 50 homes, the owners of which will be encouraged to report any crimes or disturbances to police. Sergeant Stan Goffert of the Newcastle Anti-Theft Squad told residents that the key to the scheme is communication. He said police and the public have got to be mates. Similar schemes in Victoria and the United States have resulted in a 45 to 60% drop in home burglaries. It's statistics like that which encourage the Rathmines Advisory Committee to request a scheme to counter increasing crime in the area.
I don't think there's any doubt that it will better the community relationships we have now.
With the police as well?
With the police. It'll make us more aware that the police are out to help us, and I think that they'll play a big part in this.
The umpiring seminar held last night is just another example. The seminar, conducted by Ruth Fletcher, who is a member of the International Hockey Rules Board and an international Grade 1 umpire, was aimed at improving the standard locally. The visit was organised by the Australian Association in conjunction with the Rothman Sports Foundation. Our audience included some of the sport's best known, like triple Olympian Paul Hill.
The move represents a big change in the way the council conducts its business. Up until the sacking of the council, final approval for building and development applications was in the hands of aldermen. The final decision will now be made by a development control unit, which will comprise the members of the building, engineering...
Has to have an elevation, as it were, a face to the harbour and a face to the city.
So we're geared hopefully the maritime collection, which is badly underhoused in its present site at Fort Scratchley, and quite a large exhibit from the science and technology.
Will go straight to him or the council when it's elected. Former Alderman Frank Foley believes it will speed up administration and get Newcastle on the move again.
Its system as operated, there has been delegated authority since 1977. It was set up by the council to try and speed up, but we've looked at it and we believe that this will help to cut through a lot of the even more red tape and get things more quickly, especially development applications or building applications through the council, get it speeded up.
About 40 people turned up at the Gillstown Tavern last night to exchange views with Dr. Terry Netherall on the Swansea Bridge Furor and a number of other local transport issues. While the State Minister for Roads, Laurie Brereton, decided on a second road bridge as long ago as March, the KU Progress Association and other groups in favour of a high-level bridge say they are not giving up. Dr. Meadowall told the audience that on his visit he had received the overwhelming message that locals want a high-level bridge. He said Newcastle needed such a bridge and better roads for its economic development. Dr. Meadowall told me that Newcastle also needs a Belmont bypass.
This is a disadvantaged area, not only in relation to roads, but many other community services. But the roads of Newcastle are in a deplorable condition. In fact, it's hard to believe with the current expenditure that you can keep up with the rate of deterioration of your roads. But the scrapping of that Belmont bypass was really just a monumental mistake. And in 5 to 10 years' time, people are going to be wondering what to do about the Belmont congestion, and they'll be looking for that freeway corridor, and they'll find that they've given the land away. And the Minister at this very moment is talking about putting S-lanes in the Belmont shopping centre, and that's a sure sign of the congestion that's building up there.
David Royal was taken from the accident scene in bush off Currumbung Street, Morisset, to the town's football ground. Their ambulance paramedics administered emergency medical treatment and prepared him for a flight to Royal Newcastle Hospital in the Westpac Rescue helicopter. David was also attended to by a doctor who, in a stroke of good luck, had been in the second ambulance to arrive on the scene. The doctor had been returning from Sydney in the ambulance, which was nearby at the time. Police say the motorcycle rider's left leg was almost completely severed and fractured in 2 places when he collided with a fellow rider. Surprisingly, he lost very little blood because his arteries were crushed by the impact. David was flown to the Royal. The doctors began immediate treatment to save his life.
Their new location was on the steps of Newcastle City Hall, and because of the possibility that one of the garden ornaments contained a bomb, they had to be severely sheltered by the scientific squad. It turned out to be a hoax, but not for our pleasure, roosters and ducks who paid the price. On the steps of the hall, each was lassoed and pulled down from 200 metres away, both breaking open. None contained anything like a bomb, but most lost vital limbs in the exercise. Then, of course, the indignity of being bundled into the back of the paddy wagon and taken into custody. This was no no, released, but several hours later, police said owners were already coming to the station to collect the remains, while police were left with trying to piece together the great case of known Matthew and Logan's garden.
Will be entitled to a lower rate of charge. The government will also require employers whose annual compensation insurance premium exceeds $2,000 to pay the first $500 of each claim, thereby promoting safe working conditions. The chairman of the State Compensation Board, John Tillman, was in Newcastle today to explain the changes. He outlined the way in which cases will now be heard.
Part of the new legislation involves the appointment of commissioners. In the past, disputed claims have been heard by judges in the Workers' Compensation Court. As of next year, commissioners will be appointed to accelerate the hearing process. At present, there's up to a 15-month delay in hearing disputed cases, and we're considering actually appointing a permanent commissioner here in Newcastle to hear these claims and opening an office for advisory and other services.
house, which has become the centre for public outcry, is situated in the heart of the Charlestown residential sector. The residents opposing the Youth and Community Services scheme to rehabilitate juvenile offenders met this afternoon in a neighbourhood house, clearly stating that they do not want the community cottage in their area. State Coordinator for Young Offender Services Ken Buttram believes that the residents
that sort of home in this location.
Well, it's clear that the residents won't cooperate with the scheme in any way. Surely if it goes ahead, the ones that will suffer most will be the juvenile offenders that you're trying to help in the first place.
Well, we don't think that it's a good environment to bring young people into a completely antagonistic neighbourhood, but we'll be doing everything we possibly can to assure people of the type of young people coming here, the sort of problems that they've had, the staffing of this place, and the sort of programs that the young people will be involved in this cottage. And we hope that by letting people know those facts, they will become more supportive.
Dotted from today's meeting.
Well, one of the things that we found out today was that contracts had been exchanged on the house. We're a little bit disappointed on that. We had thought when we went into the meeting that the contracts as yet had not been exchanged. That was the information we had from Richard Face on Monday. And as yet I think we're still in a state of shock to think that they would have moved so quickly.
Now that the contracts have been exchanged, just how far are you prepared to fight to stop the community cottage from being?
Well, I think we've made our point quite clear that although we don't disagree with the actual proposal, we just don't want it in our area. Now, we will not cooperate in any way, we won't assist, and if they wish the program to be a success, I suggest that they find another home in another area.
At this stage, do you think residents will leave the area?
I don't think that's up for me to say at the moment. I know at our mass meeting that we had on Sunday that people had called out from the audience that yes, they may as well sell their houses and move.
All aboard on a voyage to nowhere, a strange destination but one that's generated a great deal of interest. The cruise ship Fair Star passed through the Heads about 5 o'clock this evening on its way to pick up Newcastle passengers who've paid a minimum of $245 to go on the trip. It's the first passengers who've paid a minimum of $245 to go on the trip. It's the first time the Fair Star has visited Newcastle. However, its predecessor, the Fair Sky, brought many immigrants in the early post-war years. The Fair Star is a large cruiser of over 23,000 tons. It boasts almost 500 cabins, 8 bars and 13 public rooms. But where is it really going? To nowhere, of course, and it'll be back in Sydney in 3 days' time. Mr Anderson inspected the 3 police stations at Wyong, Chickley and the entrance as a result of numerous complaints by local politicians and members of the public. There's been concern for some time the 3 stations are understaffed and lacking in facilities. Although the 76 policemen who work in the Tuggerah division have one of the best rate of arrests per officer in the state, there are extensive problems. It's not uncommon for almost 4,000 hours overtime to be clocked up during a 12-month period. The entrance police station is not manned 24 hours a day because there's not enough staff. At all 3 stations, the lack of general duties police means officers who would be best used out on the road remain station-bound, performing largely clerical duties. Despite these problems, Police Minister Peter Anderson remains unconvinced
there is a shortage of staff at Wyong Police Station.
No, not exactly, because we've trebled the police strength in the Wyong division in the last 9 years, and there have been substantial improvements in terms of manpower in the Central Coast and in Newcastle. And yet we still have complaints with regard to the policing, and I'm looking at not only the question of police strength by itself, but the efficient utilisation of police. I'm committed to the concept that highly trained police officers should be utilised on police work, not on doing clerical work that anybody could do. And that's an issue which is the subject of a dispute at the moment. It's been going on for some time. There's the question of the introduction of additional technology, and we've got some fairly significant advances which are being undertaken at the present time. We've also looked at relieving police of non-police duties to enable them to undertake police work that they presently deal with in the course of their normal operations. Now, all these things, when they're coupled together, will produce a more effective and efficient police service for the public, but they do take time, and of course we encounter resistance along the way.